There's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I really believe it's one of those things that can change the way that a person lives when they really let it sink in. And it's this: your presence changes more than you think. A lot of people, they underestimate the effect they have on the world around them. They think their presence is small. They think that their energy is private. They think their mood stays with them. They think the way they carry themselves does not really impact much unless they are in some obviously important role. But I think, or I just don't think, or I don't believe that that's true. So I think we are affecting things all the time. The way we walk into a room affects the room. The way we respond affects the conversation. The way we carry pressure affects the people around us. The way we handle disappointment affects the emotional tone of the moment. The way we talk to ourselves affects what we radiate outward. The way we regulate or do not regulate affects more than we realize. And I think one reason people miss this is because they are looking for impact in obvious places. They think impact has to be big, like public and impressive and visible and recognized and measured. They think if they are not on a stage changing thousands of lives, leading a giant movement, or making tons of money, or doing something obviously significant, then maybe their life does not carry that much influence. But real influence is often much quieter than that. It's in the way your child feels when you walk in the room. It's in the way your partner experiences your presence. It's in the way your team responds to your tone. It's in the way your body language affects a conversation. It's in the way your calm helps someone else settle. It's in the way your attention causes other people to tighten without even knowing why. And that matters. And honestly, I think many people need this reminder right now because there are so many people walking around feeling disconnected from their own significance. They feel behind, or they feel overlooked, or they feel like they're not doing enough. They can feel like maybe their daily life is too ordinary to really matter. They feel like purpose has to look much bigger than where they are standing right now. But maybe part of the problem is that people have made purpose too glamorous, and maybe purpose is not always some giant assignment out there somewhere. Maybe part of purpose is the way you affect people. Maybe part of purpose is the emotional atmosphere that you create. Maybe part of purpose is the example you set under pressure. Maybe part of purpose is what changes because you were there. And that's not small. And I think about this in so many different ways in life, in so many different areas of life. I think about it in families first, because in families, the energy people bring is felt so strongly. If you walk in rushed, people feel rushed. If you walk in agitated, people feel that. If you walk in criticizing, people feel that. If you walk in checked out, people feel that too. And on the other hand, if you walk in grounded and present and soft enough to actually be there, people feel that. And that affects the home. Not because you said something brilliant or said some brilliant thing, not because you gave a speech, not because you had the perfect parenting technique, but because your presence itself created a certain kind of environment. And I think this is especially true for people who are used to being responsible. A lot of responsible, high-functioning people think that as long as they are doing the right things, they are doing enough. They are paying the bills, they are handling the details, they are keeping things moving, they are showing up physically. But people do not only respond to what you do, they respond to what it feels like to be around you. That is a very different conversation. And I think it's such an important one because some people are technically showing up, but energetically, they're absent. They're wound tight or harsh or heavy or emotionally unavailable. And so internally pressured that everyone around them can feel it. And again, not because they're bad, not because they don't love people, not because they don't care, but because they haven't slowed down enough to realize that what is happening inside them is affecting the room around them. And that's a big deal. And I think about this in relationships too. Like, relationships are shaped so much by presence. The tone you use matters. The speed of your response matters. Your facial expressions matter. Your willingness to pause matters. And your ability to listen without tightening matters. Your emotional regulation matters. Because the same words can land very differently depending on the energy they come wrapped in. And you can say the right thing with pressure underneath it and it lands hard. You can say something simple with softness underneath it and it lands with safety. And that is real. And people feel that even if they cannot articulate it. So have you ever been around someone who seems calm and steady and somehow you just feel safer near them? And have you also been around someone you may not even be, they may not even be saying much, but the tension rolling off of them changes how everybody feels. And that is what I mean. Presence speaks. And I think most people underestimate how loudly it speaks. I think about this in business and leadership too. There are people who think leadership is mostly about decisions and confidence and communication and strategy. And yes, those things matter, but leaders also create an emotional environment. If a leader is frantic, it spreads. If a leader is reactive, it spreads. If a leader is fearful, it spreads. If a leader is over-controlling, it spreads. And people may not always say it out loud, but they feel it. And the reverse is also true. If a leader is grounded, it spreads. If a leader is steady, it spreads. If a leader is clear and settled, it spreads. And if a leader can regulate instead of leaking pressure everywhere, it changes the whole room. That is influence. That is leadership. And it's one reason I think inner work matters so much more than people sometimes realize, because your inner world does not stay inner for very long. What is happening inside you eventually shows up in your tone, your timing, your decisions, your reactions, your habits, your body language, your patience, your face, your nervous system, your attention. So if someone says, well, my internal state is my business, I would say yes, up to a point, but it's also affecting the people who live with you, who work with you, who play with you, who perform with you, and who love you. And that is not meant to create pressure. It is meant to create awareness and responsibility, because awareness is empowering. And if your present matters, then your awareness matters. And if your energy affects things, then learning to notice it matters. If what you bring into a space changes that space, then becoming intentional about what you bring matters. And that is a beautiful kind of responsibility, not heavy responsibility, not shame-filled responsibility, conscious responsibility. And I think about this in performance too. In sports, people often focus so much on skill that they miss the importance of state. But an athlete's presence affects teammates. A golfer's presence affects the tone of the round. A shooter's presence affects the squad. A coach's presence affects what athletes feel. A competitor's emotional state affects the body, the mind, timing, recovery, rhythm, and decision-making. That means performance is never just physical. Performance is also energetic. It's emotional, it's mental, it's relational. And the way someone carries themselves under pressure affects more than the moment itself. And this is true outside of sports also. So the way you handle stress at home affects the home. The way you handle uncertainty at work affects work. The way you speak to yourself affects what version of you walks into the next room. And that is one reason I believe healing matters so much too, because when a person does real healing work, they do not just change their own experience, they affect what gets passed on, they affect what gets normalized, they affect what gets modeled, they affect what other people experience from them. When a person becomes less reactive, that matters. And when a person becomes more honest, that matters. When a person becomes more regulated, that matters. When a person becomes kinder to themselves, that matters. When a person stops living in chronic tension, that matters. Those shifts ripple. And sometimes people want visible proof that what they are doing matters, but some of the most meaningful effects of growth are not immediately measurable. And maybe you never know how much safer someone felt because you paused instead of reacting. And maybe you never know how much your calm or presence changed a conversation. And maybe you never know how much your healing helped stop something unhealthy from moving into the next generation. But unseen does not mean unimportant. And that is something I really want you to hear. And I think a lot of people are hungry for that reminder, because when someone feels invisible, they often start acting like what they bring does not matter. But it does. Your tone matters, your attention matters, your response matters, your face matters, your nervous system matters, your pace matters, your emotional steadiness matters, your self-awareness matters. I think this is one reason mindfulness matters too. Not because mindfulness is trendy, not because we need one more self-help buzzword, but because mindfulness helps a person notice when they're actually and what they're actually bringing. Am I bringing rush? Am I bringing resentment? Am I bringing criticism? Am I bringing calm? Am I bringing presence? Am I bringing fear? Am I bringing safety? Am I bringing love? Am I bringing agitation? Am I bringing peace? And that is such a powerful question. What am I bringing right now? And then maybe the second question is this: what do I want to bring? Because sometimes just pausing long enough to ask those two questions can change the whole moment. Before you walk into the house, before you answer the phone, before you respond to the email, before you go into a meeting, before you talk to your child, before you have the hard conversation, before you step into the next task. What am I bringing? What do I want to bring? And that is not small. That is a life practice. And honestly, I think the more a person understands that their presence matters, the more intentional they become. Not fake, not performative, not pressured to be perfect, just intentional. Because now they realize, I do affect things. I am not neutral. My presence is not random. How I show up leaves an imprint. And that can reconnect people to meaning in a really beautiful way. Because when someone realizes their presence matters, they stop needing all of their worth to come from big visible success. They start to honor the quiet forms of impact too. The room that feels different because they are in it. The child who feels safer because of how they respond. The partner who feels heard because they softened. The team that feels steadier because they regulated. The friend who feels more at ease because they brought peace instead of pressure. That all matters. So if you've been in a season where you have felt small or disconnected or discouraged, or like maybe your life is not carrying as much meaning as you wish it were, I really want to remind you, your presence changes more than you think. The way you show up matters. The state you live in matters. The energy you bring matters. The healing you do matters. The tone you create matters. The example you set matters. And maybe one of the most meaningful things you can practice this week is simply becoming more aware of what enters the room when you do, because your presence is affecting more than you realize. And that is not a burden. That is actually one of the most beautiful truths of being alive. So thanks for listening. And if I can help you with any of this, just go to dawngrant.com because I'd be happy to help you.